Some lives are shaped by circumstance. Others are shaped by a conscious commitment to serve. For more than 8 decades, Professor Samdhong Rinpoche has stood at the intersection of Buddhist philosophy, education, democracy, and the Tibetan struggle. A monk and scholar, an educator and political leader, he has dedicated much of his life to preserving Tibetan knowledge while advocating a distinctly non-violent vision for Tibet and humanity. This is the story of the 5th Samdhong Rinpoche. Samdhong Lobsang Tenzin was born on November 5, 1939, in Jol in eastern Tibet. At the age of 5, he was recognized as the reincarnation of the 4th Samdhong Rinpoche and was formally enthroned at Gaden Dechenling Monastery. His childhood thereafter was devoted largely to Buddhist study and monastic training. He later continued his education at the Great Drepung Monastery in Lhasa, studying Buddhist philosophy within Tibet's rigorous monastic tradition. But the world around him was changing dramatically. In 1959, following the political upheaval in Tibet, the 20-year-old Samdhong Rinpoche left his homeland and came into exile in India. Like thousands of Tibetans of his generation, exile would transform the course of his life. Rather than allowing displacement to become only a story of loss, Samdhong Rinpoche turned his attention towards education. Beginning in 1960, he taught monks from the great Tibetan monastic universities of Sera, Drepung, and Gaden. He later worked in Tibetan schools in Shimla, Darjeeling, and Dalhousie, eventually serving as principal. His intellectual journey also continued. He received the prestigious La Rampa degree in Buddhist philosophy in 1968 and the Ngagrimpa degree the following year. In 1971, he became principal of the Central Institute of Higher Tibetan Studies in Varanasi, an institution established to preserve and advance India's and Tibet's classical traditions of learning. He would remain closely associated with the institute for 3 decades, later serving as its director until 2001. For Samdhong Rinpoche, education was never simply about collecting knowledge. It was about cultivating wisdom, responsibility, and ethical human beings. His work eventually extended from the classroom into public life. In 1990, Samdhong Rinpoche participated in efforts to draft constitutional frameworks for the Tibetan community. He subsequently served in the Tibetan Parliament in exile and became its chairman, playing an important role during a period when His Holiness the Dalai Lama was gradually transferring greater political responsibility to democratic institutions. Then came a historic moment. In 2001, Tibetans living in the free world directly elected their executive leader for the first time. They chose Samdhong Rinpoche. He became Kalon Tripa, the head of the Tibetan government in exile, now known as the Central Tibetan Administration. His election represented an important milestone in the democratization of the Tibetan political system. He served 2 terms, from 2001 until 2011. Yet Samdhong Rinpoche has always been an unusual political leader. His political philosophy is deeply rooted in Buddhist ethics and the Gandhian principle of ahimsa, non-violence. He has argued that political freedom cannot be separated from moral responsibility. During his leadership, he emphasized democracy, non-violence, environmental responsibility, self-reliance, and the preservation of Tibetan culture. He envisioned Tibetan settlements not merely as refugee communities, but as places where sustainable and ethical ways of living could be practiced. For him, the Tibetan struggle was more than a contest for political power. It was also a responsibility to preserve a civilization, its language, philosophy, spiritual traditions, and accumulated knowledge for future generations. His thinking frequently challenged assumptions about modernization itself. Progress, in his view, should not be measured only through economic growth or material consumption, but through the well-being of human beings, communities, and the natural environment. Today, Professor Samdhong Rinpoche is remembered not only as a former political leader, but as one of the significant Tibetan thinkers and educators of the modern era.